The horizon filled with crosses, strings of lights, doors and windows. A dead elm down the street from this tree, this perch, telling time by the bus schedule, the number of yolks broken in the breakfast rush. Tree Talk was written over 2 very hot days in July 2017, and I set up on the patio of the Tallest Poppy restaurant in downtown Winnipeg, and I wrote to the tree. So it's 2 days of writing, and I would just sort of every card, every leaf was a new thought or a new poem, and I had to really confine the poems just to that piece of paper. There's no overarching narrative. There's just what I noticed and what I saw and what was there and the thoughts that I was having as I was looking up at the tree. I have always been sort of interested in public poetry projects to bring people in, not just when a book is done and when you're doing the launch and when you're trying to convince people that poetry is a thing that they want to read, but at the beginning. I wanted people to be a part of this and to perform it as we were composing it. And so I decided that I would do something on the patio, I would do something with the tree, but that I would invite people around me to participate. So the people at the restaurant, the people that were walking by, anyone that I could strong arm into visiting. But what was lovely about it is that I was asking people to slow down and look at a tree, and look at a street tree, and look at something that they may not even have considered as another living individual. Because trees are the largest organisms that we get to interact with in a city. And unlike a deer or a raccoon or a coyote, they won't flee from you. They are there. You can spend as much or as little time with them as you want. It's kind of wrong to think of trees as like furniture or as a light pole. Those are large organisms, they're old organisms, they're part of that more than human that we get to experience here in this place because people planted trees. And I wanted people to slow down and see them and to interact with them and interact with me, and I wanted to write with them. But I liked that idea of being more aware of the more than human around us, being aware of the benefits that trees bring us, especially as climate change starts to affect us. You know, this past summer with the wildfires and that smoke that stayed in the city for a month, and with the heat dome and the drought that was most of the summer, you cannot say anymore that we're not climate change affected. Stories are how we figure out how to be in the world. It's how we figure out what we want and how we're going to get or be what we want. I think stories are, I don't know, they're the way that we talk to each other. And I see stories and things like my poem, this poem, I see that as my way of being in dialogue with the world. I talk to lots of people just in my regular life, and I'm in conversation with them, but being in conversation with them through story or through literature, through poetry, is a different register. And I like that register. I like what it allows me to do. I like how it allows me to play. I realized that I really loved playing with language and that I could build something that stood separately from me. Like, I could, sometimes you have a poem and you finish it and you're like, this poem exists separately from me. It's this edifice that I built out of words, out of fucking cobwebs, right? Like, how did you do that? And you can look at it and admire it. and it's a completely separate thing from you. And not all poems do that, right? But like, it's kind of amazing. Like, how do you build something out of language, out of not paint, not clay, but words, which are so malleable, and meaning and shifting and sound and metaphor? I think you figure it out every time you write something, but it becomes easier to start, or it becomes easier to finish, or you just start to know the kind of poem that you write or the kinds of things that you write. But there's a trap in there too, because you don't want to write the same poem over and over again. I mean, who needs 100 mugs? You need a whole set of dishes. The thing about being a writer is that you have to make yourself uncomfortable to write the things that are meaningful, that are important. And that's hard. That's hard on the ego. That's hard on your psyche. It's hard emotionally to feel uncertain all the time. And then the constant rejection, right? Because no matter how successful you are, you're not going to get everything you apply for. You're not going to get your first choice isn't going to publish you all the time, right? Like all of those things, there's so many variables. And so it's both the uncertainty on a creative level and the uncertainty on a professional level. And so sometimes people are like, why do I do this? Like, what is this? Why do I do this? But it's also what makes me happiest. So why poetry or why writing? Because it's the way that I've figured out of processing the world around me. It's the way I've figured out how to communicate with other people and to be present in other people's lives. You know, it's art. The advice that I would give to young writers and to young artists is to be serious and to be playful at the same time. But above all, to make room in your life and realize that you can only fit so many things into your life. You kind of have to choose. And it gets harder if you're a woman, if you plan to have children or not. It's hard, but it's worth it. It's a good life. I've had a good life because I chose to be a poet. Will I be eating dog food when I'm old? Probably. But it's been a good life.